I hereby call this meeting to order. Mary, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hereby call the meeting of August 19th to order. It's a public hearing for the Prescott Board of Adjustments. I would like to welcome Councilman Phil Good. I would like to welcome Councilman-elect Montoya. Thank you for being here, gentlemen. Taking roll call. As I call your name out, please say here, loud and clear, since some of us are on Zoom. I'm Jim Lamerson, the chairman. Vice Chairman Tony?
Here.
Mary?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Larry? James?
Larry, you need to unmute yourself.
Did I hear? I didn't.
Can
think
we ask him to unmute?
Sure.
Larry, you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, a hand raised.
Larry, you need to unmute yourself.
I don't think he hears you.
Doesn't look like it.
Oh, there you go. How's that?
Much
That's
better.
better.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
am here.
So, did we have all 7 here?
We actually do not have James on the line, so we're at 6 now.
We're at 6. Okay. So the number present is 6. It will require full votes for a majority. As some individuals might be attending Zoom, all parties wishing to be heard, including board members, are required to state their name prior to speaking in order to ensure proper recording. Members of the public are required to state their name and address for the record so that we know who you are speaking and we can contact you if necessary on a later date. At this time, I'd like to ask you all to keep your phones and telephones and everything turned off. The only time we would like to hear is if you're speaking at the mic and you want to be heard. So, having said that, I would like to move into the last meeting, and I want to go to the approval or denial of accepting the minutes from the last meeting.
And I just want to state on the record that there were corrections received by board member Frederickson and Davis that were made. Just so that's on the record.
So do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we accept the minutes of the last meeting with the corrections made. Second.
All those in favor indicate by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 If I counted that correctly, I think I heard all 6.
Yes, it was unanimous.
All right, thank you. So we'll move right into the next item on our agenda. So I'm going to turn over to our nice lady from the staff to tell us about what we're talking about today. If you would like to do that, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner with the City of Prescott. Our first request today on the agenda is a request for a conditional use permit for a new church in an RE2 zoning district. Per the use table that was in your packets, as you can see, places of worship and churches are allowed in residential zoning districts with a conditional use permit. Basically, what this allows is us to determine if there's any conditions that need to be imposed on the property, such as lighting concerns or hours of operation or other concerns that may come up from the neighborhood. Here's a map of the area. This is the subject property here. It is in a RE2 acre zoning district, and it is only a 1 acre parcel. It is considered a legal non-conforming parcel, which means that it is a legal parcel that when it was created, it would met the zoning requirements, but it's non-conforming, but it does have to meet the setbacks and lot coverage and other development criteria for an RE2 acre zoning district. This little circle here that shows that we did get a letter of opposition for the variance request, which is the next item on your agenda for this property. And I'll go over that when we get to the variance application. So here's the subject property, Imagery. We do have an existing church next door. So this will be a new church on this parcel here. Access is through the neighborhood. There is no access off of Willow Creek Road, which is similar to the church next door. It's going to use the same access, and there's a shared access here. And right here, this is a shared driveway access. Here's the site plan that's being proposed. All the parking will be up front as the people come in, and then the proposed church will be in the back here. Then it drops down significantly to Willow Creek Road. Here's the access road to the subject property. And like I said, it shares the same access as the existing church. So this will be the subject parcel over here. This is the existing church. And then this is the proposed lot for the new church. This has been sent out for review. There were no issues or concerns from any of our reviewing agencies. And we do have a suggested motion with conditions that the CUP approval and subsequent construction of the approximately 5,984 square foot sanctuary and parking area. So the CUP allows for the construction of that. And then additional activities outside regular services, Sunday mornings and evenings, Wednesday evening services, and occasional wedding ceremonies must be approved by the community development staff, who may require approval by the Board of Adjustment. And this is a similar stipulation we've added to other CUPs for churches. So that concludes my presentation. I'm free to answer any questions. And right now we're just discussing the CUP for the church, and next we'll go into the variance that they're requesting.
Okay. Do any of the board members have questions or things that they have of concern that they would like to discuss?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Tom Davis. A couple things. One is section 9.36 of your staff report. Tammy says, staff recommends approving per site plan and that any uses beyond that is detailed in the narrative. Are we presuming that the approval of the site plan that exists with variances? So is that appropriate to have that recommended approval? So is this juncture? Because it seems to me that we would be approving a site plan that has existing variances in it.
So we're not approving the site plan with the CUP. If you look at the conditions that we've recommended, the CUP approval and subsequent construction we put the square footage of the sanctuary in the parking area. It's not per the site plan. So for the CUP, we're not approving it per the site plan, but we are approving the size of the sanctuary.
Okay. And the other thing I have is there's an email attachment from Mr. and Mrs. Morley.
Yes.
Okay. Is that their question? Has that been addressed?
So that's in regards to the variance request. So we'll discuss that on the next item.
Okay. The email though is attached to the staff report.
But their question was more in regards to the variance request about why didn't they get an appropriate size property to meet what they were wanting to do. So we can address that with the variance. With the CUPs, we're just looking at possible conditions. We can't deny, mostly a religious institution in a residential area.
Okay.
So we're just looking at possible conditions of approval.
Okay.
And then the variance we'll discuss next separately, because we have to approve the CUP first before we can discuss the variance.
I understand that. It's just that this email is attached to the CUP.
I understand. Yes, correct.
All right.
But
Was that a satisfactory?
Yeah, I believe it's been addressed.
and Larry Meads, you had your hand up.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, in regards to the external impacts, lighting was mentioned by Mr. Witt just now, and that is a concern because we don't see on the site plan that we have, we don't see any indication of lighting in that parking lot. Maybe they don't have any lighting. I can't tell from that. So that's a question I have. I presume the height of the building is within the requirements here for this lot. But I'd like to have that explained. And I also have a question about, and bear with me here, but is this an expansion of the existing church that's there? So they're going to have two lots side by side and just share the property line?
So this is a new church that's separate from the church next door. It's a separate property and a separate church. In regards to the height, they have to meet all development criteria of the RE2 acre zoning district, unless they applied for a variance for something else. A CUP cannot approve any deviations from development criteria. In regards to lighting, we have not seen any renderings of what their proposed lighting are going to be. So they will have to meet all development criteria. And if there's no activities going on, the lights do have to be off in the parking lot per the city code.
Okay, thank you. And I want to, Mike, bear with me, please, is the, okay, well, that'll be on the next request. So I'll wait for my next question. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Larry.
Mary Frederickson, Tammy, and this may be something to push off to the next item. So sorry, Mary Frederickson. I don't know if this item or this concern is to be pushed off to the next item or not, but nonetheless, is the notice that went out to the surrounding homeowners, does that include the site plan?
No, it did not. So people have we tell them we have on the notice that if they ask for additional information, to please email us or call us, and we have been emailing the site plan out to people that have asked for it.
Okay, so the homeowners that are in between this lot and Honeysuckle, where the parking for the church will be right up against their backyard, do we know whether or not those homeowners requested the site plan? That is, do they know that they're going to have a parking lot immediately next to their backyard?
I'm not sure exactly where everybody was. I mean, we get a notice, an emails asking for information. We send it to them. So I can't tell you whether they asked for it or not.
I guess that would be in conjunction with the whole lighting plan. I guess if I was a homeowner and I had a parking lot right next to my backyard, any objection might be related to how much lighting they're going to have. But I guess I had another question in regard to noise. In your staff report, you mentioned that the noise would be limited to people coming and going from the services or weddings. But I also saw indication of meals to be social events involving meals in the courtyard. Do we have any idea? Are we talking about a weekly thing, a daily thing, as far as noise goes?
I'd have to defer that to the applicant to answer those questions.
Okay. Do we have the applicant?
We have representatives for the application.
Okay. Is this something to ask them to provide information on now, or maybe at the next item?
So if you guys don't have any more questions for me, then we can ask the applicant come up.
Do you have any questions, Tony? Does any of the other commissioners have any more questions? Then let's go ahead and ask the applicant to come forward.
I'm Tom Terry with Distinctive Homes. I'm the architect for this project at present. So,
Thank you. I'm sure you heard my question. I'm just wondering if you had any input from the applicant as to that meals, social events component of their.
The courtyard, as you can see, is towards the public space of Willow Creek. And so the courtyard was designed to be away from the residential area. And so we were planning on events happening over there. I would say churches typically might have a potluck. I'm not sure of this church, but a potluck usually would maybe happen in the courtyard monthly or weekly. I don't know the rhythm that they would be picking for that event. And also you also mentioned the lighting. So this is near a residential area. I was thinking that we were just going to have building lighting and not have a lot of parking lot lighting on that issue. And so the issues that you brought up, those are to address those items. Did you have any other questions on that?
Actually, I had another thought, not yet expressed, though. There was something in the write-up about a future play area to be added.
Yeah, that would be in the courtyard
In
for
that
the
courtyard.
kids, children. They'll have, yes.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Any more questions?
I don't have any now.
Okay. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
I do not have anything else.
Okay.
Larry has his hand up.
Yes.
Tom Davis.
Oh,
Are there
sorry.
members of the public or neighbors here that would or
Once we get done with the question, then we can ask for the public.
okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Larry?
Mr. Chairman, hi, this is Larry Meads. What triggers a traffic impact analysis?
That
for
would
this
be
street?
determined by our traffic engineer, and they didn't have any requirements.
Thank you.
We don't need to do a traffic impact analysis with regards to the neighborhood?
It was not, when it was reviewed, that there was not one required.
Okay.
You
And
know,
that's by code?
And I would have to defer to our traffic engineer for that, which is not here because we didn't know that would be a question.
So we don't know the anticipated traffic impact. We don't know the anticipated lighting impact. We don't.
That'll all be reviewed with the building permits.
Mhm. Okay.
So this is just before they can apply for building permits, they have to go through this process. So in regards to religious institutions, we cannot deny them to be there per RLUIPA and per state law. What we can do is impose conditions for possible impacts. But as they do come through, when we did a pre-application conference, a TIA was not required based on what that was being submitted to staff.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is there's no anticipated impacts for either the lighting or for the traffic that would require some sort of a study.
Correct. So if they have any lighting, that will be reviewed by staff at building permit stage. So at this time, they're not anticipating any lighting, but if they do, we will review it for code compliance to make sure it meets all our dark sky requirements.
Okay, I think that's important to have that conversation. Okay, especially with the existing neighborhoods.
And that's something we always review with all projects.
Okay, but that's important to hear on the record too.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Tom Davis. I am surprised that driving through the neighborhood. I mean, the access is through a residential neighborhood, and I'm kind of surprised that there isn't any objection to two uses right next to each other that would generate an amount of traffic for that neighborhood.
And that's something our traffic engineer looked at when we did a pre-application conference, and they did not determine that it would require a TIA. And we have Mark has his hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Mark Huckness here. A question for staff. The church that exists that's adjacent to this property, does it have any conditions that were placed on it when it was constructed?
Due to the time it was placed, a CUP was not required, or it might have been there under the county. So at this time, in our research, we did not find a CUP for that. So it could have been constructed prior to the requirement for a CUP on that property.
Thank you.
Any more questions? You know, I sometimes I get a little questionable on some of the ways that we do things. I mean, I would have a tendency to think that we would want to do some of these things ahead of time rather than be reactive, rather than proactive. But having said that, I want to do what's necessary in the framework of the law. So anyway, I'm looking at this time, if none of the board members have any more questions, I'm looking for a motion.
Open to the public.
I'll get there
Okay.
after we
Well, you need to open up to public before
Open
you
up
make
to
a
the
motion.
so that we can hear whether or not the public, that's especially the ones that are going to be impacted, what they think of what's going on. Okay, so if we have no more input from commissioners or staff, at this time I would like to open the floor to the public. Does somebody want to come forward and discuss their concerns or support or what they think's happening in their neighborhood or in the community? I don't see any.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Larry Meads.
Hi, Larry.
Hi. As I understand it, then in this first application, the owner is asking for approval for this facility, this church within this lot, which is legal but non-conforming. Is that correct?
Correct. So a conditional use permit, just to kind of go over, which I know is very confusing. So a conditional use permit, the uses are allowed, but we review it for any potential conditions we may add to the property. And mostly in regards to religious institutions, we cannot deny the use on the property. The only thing we can do is possibly impose some conditions that are not beyond what we would require of any other church. So for this one, we are limiting the size of it per what they're proposing. And then also the activities on the property. So if they want to go beyond and add additional activities to the property, they would have to come to staff and then possibly come back through the Board of Adjustment. If it's if it's determined to be a substantial increase in uses that will impact the traffic and other impacts on the property. But at this time, we are just reviewing it for the size of the sanctuary and for these events that were in their narrative. So,
Mr. Chairman, this is Larry Meads.
Yes, sir.
I do understand what is being proposed here, and I just, when it comes to the expiration of a conditional use permit, if we're silent on that, then it implies, and I want to be sure of this, that then there is no expiration date if we're silent on that.
I would defer to legal on that.
so my understanding from what you can impose a review period. So if you want to review this in a year to determine that it's built and not having any additional impacts to the neighbors, then we can do that. Then it would have to come back before the Board of Adjustment. We will re-advertise and send notices out to the neighbors if you want to add a 1-year review period on it or any time frame.
Thank you. And Mr. Witt, would that impose a fee on the applicant, or would they be coming at our request?
No fee. Yeah, no fee.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Larry.
It's Larry, and I'd like to go ahead and make this motion. To approve CUP 21-004 with the following conditions. That the CUP approval and subsequent construction of approximate 5,984 square foot sanctuary and parking area, and 2 additional activities outside regular services, Sunday mornings and evenings, Wednesday evening services, and occasional wedding ceremonies there may be other activities, must be approved by the community development staff, who may require approval by the Board of Adjustment. And I would further like to include an expiration date of 1 year, so we can review this again to see how well it fits into the community.
A question,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Larry, when would that date be? I mean, would it be at the occupancy, completion of the building permit?
1 year from today.
1 year from today?
And it's not an expiration, it's a review.
Okay.
So it's be a review by the Board of Adjustments in 1 year.
Well, my concern is that they're not in operation. The impact of traffic on the community will not be realized in a year.
So one suggestion that George made was, yeah, you can add 1 year from the date of their certificate of occupancy. So that way they can get open and have a year to operate. But then it's an unknown date, but we can mark it in our files that there's a review after they get their C of O in 1 year by the Board of Adjustment.
Mr. Chairman, this is Larry Meads, and I'd like to amend my motion to include from the occupancy date, certificate of occupancy date.
And just for clarify, that's a review, not an expiration date, because these don't have it.
Larry, and thank you for the explanation of that's a review.
Yes, sir.
Moving it forward.
We need a second.
Mr. Chair.
Do I have a second? Okay.
This is Mark Oakness. I'll second the motion.
Well, I had a motion, and then Tony Teeters had already previously seconded it. So I have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of moving this forward to where we can discuss the next item on the agenda, which also includes this project, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously.
Let's move forward to the second item on the agenda. Which is a review of the conditional uses and stuff like that. Is that correct?
So this request is for a variance to the setbacks for the land development code.
And the variance is required because of all the things we just discussed, right?
So a variance is required because they are asking for a reduction of the side setbacks. So it doesn't impact the use of the property. It's just that they're asking for a reduction of the side setbacks to allow for 22 feet 8 inch side setbacks in an area which requires a 35-foot setback. So here's the site plan on the property again. So this line here in the middle, this one and this one, these are the required 35-foot side setbacks. And like I said, even though this is a legal non-conforming parcel, it still has to meet the setback requirements of the RE 2-acre zoning, which are 35 feet on all sides. So what they're asking is a reduction in the side setbacks on both sides to allow the church to be wider here so that it doesn't impact the parking area. And then it also may allow for a future expansion here in the back. But any future expansion in the back that they still want to encroach in that side setback would have to come before the Board of Adjustment again. So this is just for this request for this side setback per the site plan. So this one will be per the site plan for what they're requesting. So again, this is the parcel. It is not as wide as the adjacent parcel where the existing church is on the other parcel. So they are a little bit more confined because it is only 1 acre compared to the 2-acre zoning that the other lots are. As stated, they could still build the church without the variance. They would just have to meet the setback requirements and kind of reconfigure the church. As long as it doesn't exceed the size of the church that you approved with the CUP, it would be allowed. So I'm free to answer any other questions you may have in regards to this, and the applicants are here to answer questions too. But we did have this is the one that the opposition that they stated they're asking, why they couldn't purchase more property to accommodate it. There is vacant land next door. I don't know if they've talked to them about possibly purchasing more land to build it without requesting the variance. That's something the applicant would have to answer. But if this is denied, the church is still allowed to be there, but it just has to meet the development criteria and the setback requirements.
Yeah, my concern would be setting a precedence on various different things with variances, and it seems like a lot of difference between what's by code that we've expected other people to do, and then by request there seems percentage-wise quite a bit of difference between what they're asking for and what by code they can already do. So does any of my fellow board members have any more questions for either the staff or the applicant?
And Mark has his hand up.
Mark?
You have to unmute yourself, Mark.
Thank you for that. Mark Oakness here. Question for staff. Is there any encroachment on the offsets in the parking area, or is it only in the building area?
It's only for the building.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Mary Frederickson, and this is for the representative for the applicant. I do see that on the site plan, within the 35-foot setback requirement, there is that additional area closer to Willow Creek. Was there any thought about, or is there anything about that additional space that would prevent you from a plan for the church that extends more narrowly but further towards Willow Creek?
Yes, we can do that, but the church requested that they will have a children's program, and they wanted to have the children in a courtyard area. And because it was a non-conforming lot with it's a 1 acre lot with 2 acre setbacks applied to it, that there wasn't room to get that courtyard effect very well and to get the church they wanted and the parking they wanted on the property. So that's why we are before you today, to allow for the courtyard concept to protect their children program that they're going to have there.
So the plan for the church to be wider than the 35 feet setbacks would allow is so to allow for that kind of interior children's courtyard.
Right.
Within the confines of the church.
Right. If we just did a church that was just more of a shotgun approach, there's no courtyard, the children would be less protected. We're planning on most of the activities out towards Willow Creek Road, which is a busy road. So.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
And just for the record, I want to note that we lost Larry Meads, so just wanted to make note of that.
All right, so now that means a change of the yeas and the nays if we don't have him on board?
Well, yeah, that doesn't change that. We still need 4 votes for it to pass.
Okay. So this isn't the type of thing that's in a supermajority scenario?
No.
It's just a either or.
I just wanted to make note for the record that Larry Meads is not in the meeting anymore.
All right. So is it at this time that we can hear from the public?
Sure. Yeah.
Are there any questions after we've had this discussion from the public? Okay. Come forward, please. To the mic, state your name and your address.
Hello, thank you for hearing us. My name is Judith Merrill, and I live at 1252 Sierra Peaks Drive. I'm haunted by what Ms. Frederickson asked, the question she asked. Do the people who live closest to this parking area know that they are going to have this large parking area right across their back fence or whatever they have around their property? And that makes me think about how difficult it is as just a resident to recognize when you are doing something by the posting that's put up. Sometimes people don't know this, and I see these people who live there maybe coming in a different way, never seeing your little sign, not really knowing that this is going on. And I'm concerned that none of those people who are going to be impacted by the traffic and by the parking situation are here today. I'm wondering if they really knew about this. And secondly, I have to say that I think anybody who needs more than 1 acre of space should buy more than 1 acre. They shouldn't come into you with a plan that really requires 1.5 acres and ask that you modify whatever you're modifying in order to accommodate their needs, that they need to buy enough land to build what they want to build. And I feel very strongly as a resident that that's part of your obligation to the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Come up to the mic, state your name and your address, please.
Hello, my name is Keith Levin. I'm True Haven Builders, also representing this church. A couple of things just to point out. One of them was in response to the last concern. It's worth really emphasizing the point that this is a 1 acre parcel with 2 acre zoning. Somewhere in the past, apparently, this was split somewhere where it retained that 2 acre setback, but now has, is a 1 acre parcel. Obviously, the larger the parcels are, the larger the setback requirements are. And so I think, when we take that into consideration on this, they could, obviously utilize all of the area around the church for playground and things like that. They don't want to do that because they want to be good neighbors and try to contain as much of that in from the setback areas as they can. So I'm not sure if I'm making sense there, but by allowing this, it is really helping the overall general community flow, for lack of a better term. So it's one of those things where they could park all the way around and have the narrow building, but they're really trying to I guess be a part of the community in a way that is the least impactful by asking that those setbacks be reduced. I don't know, maybe Tammy knows off the top of the head, what would a setback actually be if this was a 1 acre, if this was zoned as a 1 acre parcel? And does that play any importance in any of your decisions? And that's the only other thing I wanted to mention is that this is a church that's been a big part of the Prescott community since the 1800s. They are, I don't know if we can discuss exactly what church it is and whatnot, but anyway, they've been here for a very long time. They're rooted here. It's one of those things. From my understanding, they've owned this parcel for a better part of 40 years, maybe more, and they finally are at a point where they really wanted to build a new building, and this is why they're asking these things. So I hope that helps with your decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Tammy, did you know the answer to that? If it were a 1 acre, you know what the setback would be?
Well, it would depend what the zoning would have been.
Well, based on the zoning.
I mean, the right now as it
residential,
is, it's still the 35 feet because it's still the RE 2 acre. So it doesn't matter. We just look at the zoning.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter about the size because it is a legal non-conforming parcel. But we aren't denying the church being there.
I understand that.
So,
I just thought that
in
a similar, if it were zoned 1 acre residential instead of the 2 acre, what would be the setbacks?
I believe it's 10, 12.
12.
Also.
What's the setbacks on this now?
They're requesting it to be 22 feet 8 inches.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Tom Davis. That's an interesting point. It seemed like the solution would be, prior to all this work being done, is a request for a zone change.
So we did discuss that with the applicant, but it would have been rezoned to commercial, so it'd be allowed by right, because then if it's even to another residential, they still wouldn't need the CUP process. So, but when you rezone it to commercial, it can be any use allowed in that commercial district, which would be a more impact to the neighbors. So with the CUP, they know exactly what's going in there. It's a church. And so that was why we stuck with the sticking it to the staying the rezoning the same and just doing the CUP and the variance request for what they're asking for. Which would do the same thing, because the site plan is per the variance request is per the site plan. So, but if, like I said, if we would have rezoned it, it would have been to commercial, and then any uses allowed in the commercial zoning district would have been allowed by right with no public input on that property.
Why wouldn't it have been rezoned to residential?
Because they would still need the CUP. So they still have to go through two processes, but two separate. First, a public hearing process through the commission and board, council, and then the CUP through here. So right now they're just asking for a CUP, which they got granted with the conditions. And now it's a variance request, which is per the site plan. So this is actually more restrictive than rezoning it.
Yeah. Are there any other questions of either the staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Mary
Yes, ma'am.
Frederickson. I don't know if either of the two representatives for the applicant have an answer to this, but it's been brought up a couple of times now as to the option for the applicant to have purchased an additional little strip of land that would expand their lot such that they could accommodate the 35-foot setbacks. Do we know whether or not there was any discussion from the church to do that?
Tom Terry, the architect again. Like Mr. Levin said, that this parcel has been in the ownership of the church, I think, before the city had it annexed, I think. And so they purchased it some years ago when they didn't have these rules, and I think the city annexed the property, and now we have to conform to the rules that are here. So on purchasing additional property, we have not gone to the neighbor to see if we can purchase any more property. This is just the property they've had for a long time, and they were just hoping they could develop it as is, because it's adequate for their needs at present. And we would just like to shape the building a particular way to allow better use for them. So
It is sufficient for them if they get the variance on the setbacks.
it's sufficient either way, but the church would prefer to have more of a courtyard church and it be more functional to their use. And that's why we're here for the variance. So.
Thank you.
And Chairman, as a note, we have Larry Meads back.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Larry. We missed you.
It's been tough. I've been gone for a while and missed a lot of good discussion.
All right. Do you
I
have
do have some
anything
questions.
you would like to add at this point?
Mr. Chairman,
Larry, you muted yourself.
is this better?
Yes.
Okay, that's temporarily unmuted. I'll just work with that. Nevertheless, I believe that the requirement for notification of the area residents is a 300-foot radius. Is that correct?
Correct. We advertise in a local paper. We
Sure.
send notices out for the CUP and the variance to all the surrounding property owners within 300 feet, and we post the property.
I'm just wondering what that 300-foot radius encompasses. I don't know if that would be all of the residents on Foxglove Place, for example, or not.
And I believe it took in well, we got a letter here, so they did take in a majority, most of these property owners. 300 feet goes out a long ways in these higher density areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Mr.
Mark
Chair.
also has his hand up.
Okay, Mark, my back's to you. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some discussion here. I'm concerned that the property has been in existence for a long time. I think I heard 40 years. And we have a community complaint of, hey, I don't like what you're doing. You should have had larger property. And in looking at granting a variance, I believe the church can meet their needs. They can build a building, they can use the property, and they have less encroachment on their neighbors if a variance was not granted. I struggle to understand how I would be able to support a variance when there are positive alternatives. And I believe I heard the architect say that they could live without the variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Or whatever. Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm Tom Davis. I have,
Thanks, Tom.
I have the kind of a similar dilemma here. First of all, variances are normally considered or approved based on some kind of a hardship that the property provides that may or may not exist, at present. And I'm sympathetic to the design aspect and the function of what the church wants to do. But there's two things here that to me don't get mitigated, and that is that there's not sufficient hardship for a variance. Number one. Number two is that there's a precedent being set here that may be could be impactful in the future. I would prefer, if I was to consider a variance, I would prefer a variance of the rear setback towards Willow Creek, instead of the side yard setbacks as they exist. So, being the fact that they have a 1 acre parcel, there are 2 acre provisions, is not enough for me to jump to the conclusion that a large setback variance is required. That's my look at it.
Thank you for your input. Do I have any other input? Yes,
Chairman,
Mary.
Thank you. Mary Fredrickson. I guess where I'm struggling is that I very much appreciate the design aspect and wanting the children's courtyard to be interior to the other structures. But I guess my struggle is that it seems like there is a solution that fits both the design requirements or desires and the not providing the variance being requested, which is to purchase an additional strip of land from the empty parcel right next door, so that the variance could be accommodated and the design desires also met. So that's where my struggle is. And the applicant's representatives here don't know whether or not that's been explored with the owner of the empty lot next door. And I would be much more comfortable if I knew that had been looked into as an option, a fix for this situation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Larry Meads. Hearing this discussion, I too wonder if a variance might be considered with a different design towards Willow Creek Road, because that would give them more room to expand. I can't see is that 35 feet, Mr. Witt, is what is shown as the back setback?
Correct. They'd have to meet the 35 feet, which is this line right here.
There would be no encroachment on a neighbor going in that direction. You can see how that drops off precipitously as it gets to Willow Creek Road. So they have some area to work with back there. And a question I have, if this motion is denied because of these setbacks, would a motion also be required regarding the parking lot due to the setback requirements?
parking spaces are allowed to be in the setbacks.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Larry. Moving this forward, now that we've had the discussion, is there any more discussion before we make a conclusion as to where we want to go with this conditional use permit?
The variance.
Well, variance. We've already done the conditional use thing,
Yes.
right? All right. I guess this is the time of the vote, and I would like to take a vote on either approving or denying the variance to be attached with the conditional use permit that we just did. So do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, Mark Hookness.
Yes, Mark.
I move to deny variance 21-003 as there are alternatives in place to not require the variance.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second that. This is Larry Meads.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of the motion to deny the variance indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, that passes 6-0, 7-0.
Passes unanimously.
Okay. Moving forward, Ms. DeWitt.
Thank you, Chairman. So this request is a variance to Article 3, Section 3435, Single Family 18 Minimum Setbacks of the Land Development Code to allow reduction in the required 25-foot rear setback by 9 feet 4 inches to allow for a 15-foot 8-inch rear setback for a new single-family residence on a 0.78 acre parcel. Here's the imagery of the parcel in question. We do have a building pad up here in the back. This is the rear of the property. This would be the front of the property, a side, and then the rear. They already have a road kind of bladed up to that area. So the applicant is proposing to build a new house in this area, so they don't have to remove any boulders or trees on the property, any additional. But there was discussed to do a topographic exception in regards to this property, but it only gives them a 10% reduction or 10 feet reduction, which would not get them to where they wanted to be. So the only other option they had was a variance for this request. So here's the site plan that they're proposing. Did you meet the side setback? A driveway can go into the side setback as proposed here. So this is the rear setback line that's required. So they're asking for a reduction in that to place the house here. And this, I'm guessing, could be a garage. It doesn't say. Here's the area. We looked on our mapping and in our files, and we do not see any other variances approved for this area. We do have some administrative adjustments, which just gives you like a 2.5 feet reduction on some of these properties, but we don't have any other variances in this area. And we do have 2 letters of opposition that were in your packets from this property owner on the rear and from this property here down the road, who have concerns about the precedent this would set and that others had to remove additional boulders and trees on the property to meet the requirements. And then here's kind of show you what the property looks like. It is lots of boulders and lots of trees. So, this was sent out for notices. The property was posted. It was advertised in the paper, and notices sent out to all the property owners within 300 feet. We did receive the 2 letters of opposition. So that concludes my presentation, and we do have a representative here for the applicant to answer any additional questions.
Thank you. Board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Larry Mead.
Yes, Larry.
I'm trying to follow my paperwork and what's being discussed, and I see the suggested motion up on the screen now. And that says V 20-005.
Yes,
And
that was a I forgot to update the motion on the staff report. So the suggested motion on the screen is what the request was. So sorry for that.
Okay, that was a bit confusing. Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
So just also, Tom Davis, just to also clarify, you mentioned that there are no other variances like these in that particular planned unit development.
Correct. We looked and we could not find any other variances that have been approved. We do have some administrative adjustments. That only gives you 2.5 feet in regards to this. So, which they needed more than that they were requesting. So.
Thank you.
Chairman, this is Mary Fredrickson. I don't know if the representative here for the applicant will have an answer to this or not. Do we know whether or not moving the house plan to accommodate the variances that are on the books right now is just an aesthetic choice? Is it difficult? Is it just more costly? Or is it just flat out impossible to move the plans to accommodate the variances? Do we have a representative?
Jared Nanke, Nanke Signature Group, Nanke Architecture and Design. We are the architect and contractor for this project. To answer your question, it's sort of a matter of all of the above. Aesthetically, if we can utilize the northern portion there and stay to the northwestern corner of that, you do have the main road that comes up there, and the intent is to keep the house back further so that we're not creating a big tower. We know that we're going to have to go 2 levels, and so the idea is aesthetically we want to keep the house back so that it's not just a big tower as you come up there. Our intent as we're designing is always to work with nature, work with what's there, and try to minimize our impact. The other thing is it's really just a factor of economics. With the boulders that we have, it's economically not feasible to do what the homeowners are wanting.
So it's possible, but costly and aesthetically not the choice the homeowner would like to go with.
Correct.
And if you could answer, Tammy mentioned that what looked like a little a casita, or Tammy thought maybe it was a garage on the plan. What is that?
That's the privacy area, so that's the master corridor. What we're doing is we have 2 paths that one appears to be more natural, and so the idea is we have a corridor that goes there. So again, just trying to work with what we have.
So that is part of the house?
That's correct, yes.
And it's envisioned to be a 2-story house?
It is.
Does the topography drop away from the road here?
It's dropping towards the road.
So the 2-story house will still be above the road?
That's correct.
And if it was situated more where the master bedroom is now, is it going to be that much higher?
Yes, it would.
Would it be that much higher?
Yes, it would. It's another 5 feet higher at that point, 5 to 6 feet higher.
So if you put the main house where the master bedroom is now, the sight line would be 5 or 6 feet higher?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Larry Meads.
Yes, Larry.
In visiting the site yesterday, I did notice that the neighbor to the rear will have quite a view. I'm not going to say their view was blocked. Their view was primarily of that lot. What's I found intriguing about the lot is how well it's screened from really every direction except that backyard. I don't know if considering screening of some sort, or if that would even mitigate an issue with that neighbor in the back. I guess that's to be determined by others. So my point is that the view of the neighbor in the back isn't changed as far as the lay of the land goes. except they'll have a building there, and a building is inevitable at some point in time. So I won't consider their view obstruction as in my vote for this motion.
Okay. I saw somebody in the back wanting to speak. Could you come forward, please?
Thank you. My name is Ruth Shepler, and I'm at 1345 Boulder Glen. I'm in the house with that green dot. We're the ones at the back of the property. So right there. Our concern and biggest concern is the fact that when our house was built, I hate to tell you the cost that we had to go through just to pin it on the existing lot and move boulders just to make it fit on the lot. We didn't ask for any variances. We didn't ask for any changes. And that's our biggest concern, is to people start asking for variances and changes in the rules when the rest of us around there adjusted our plans, ate the cost, and built our homes. And that's our concern. Now, something that was brought up today that we were not aware of is that driveway. Our understanding is that's an illegal driveway that somebody put up when they did the pad, because that is so close to the stop sign that there isn't even the curb. When the city put the curbs in, there is no curb there. The curb is further down where the power is, and that the driveway had to come up that way through those boulders. So this is something we're just hearing today, and that's between the property owner and the city. But it's our concern is to start changing variances, because it's inconvenient for somebody when the rest of us, and the gentleman on the left there, right there, he did the same thing we did. He had to adjust his plans, adjust his building envelope to go with what he had available to build on. All of those properties up there that's why we went up there, because they have the boulders and the rocks and everything else. So it astounds me that you come, later and you want changes in the rules to sit your plans when the rest of us abided by the rules and did our thing. So that's my objection, and would still be my objection, is not, I don't think, appropriate to change the rules in the middle of the game for somebody else when the rest of us abided by the rules and went by the variances and adjusted our homes accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Come to the mic.
My name is David Newer, and I live in that house 907 Downer Trail, and I did file a written complaint. I don't know what happened to it, but when I think about setbacks, I personally consider that it's constraint and reliance. Constraint on me when I worked with a builder to build that house, and to live within the setbacks. Frankly, it was expensive. But we honored the setbacks, and I'm delighted with the house, and I'm delighted with this very unique community. But the second part is my reliance that the remaining properties would also have to fit within their setbacks. My view is affected at least by 10 feet if you move it that way. So I would ask that you consider, one, my view, two, my investment, and further, there's 2 more lots that are going to be built on Downer Trail, and if you would grant this, I just wonder if you're setting a precedent for them to look at their setbacks, because their lots are actually quite a bit smaller and don't offer the envelope that some of these others do. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir, come forward.
Hi, my name is Jerry Wilder. I live at 1342 Windwalker, and that's 3 or 4 blocks away from this location. and just I don't know the owners. I've only spoken to one of the owners, the woman. I don't even know their names, and I walk by there all the time, and I drive by. You know, it's the busiest intersection in that whole development right there. So when it comes to the point about the driveway, that really needs to be looked at. It'd be very dangerous. I saw the notice, so I don't have any skin in the game. I saw the notice, and I wondered what it was. And then I talked to Tammy a couple of times, and she has been just super excellent, very responsive. And I've been up there a couple of times, most recently yesterday, and walked it off. And that a structure, by moving it in over 1/3, so they're asking for a variance of over 1/3. If I was to buy that house and be in the market, the existing one, and I went back and I saw a house as close as this one's going to be, given the topography, and now I just heard it's going to be 2 stories, I would get in the car. I would turn around and get in the car. Nobody in this room would want that. I was surprised when I saw the site plan. I was surprised and frankly disappointed. I can't imagine that someone would come and purchase a lot and then ask for this kind of variance, encroaching on the quality of life of their neighbors. That's unbelievable to me. And now I get hear this from the builder today, if I heard it correctly, and I hope I'm said that he didn't want to build a tower. Well, that's the highest point in the area. And they're putting a 2-story, now they're talking about putting a 2-story building in here. Tammy indicated that could be a driveway. I don't think it could be a driveway. You'd have an accident for sure. That's a blind corner in both directions. But I think the main point to be considered is that the builders, the representatives said it was an economic decision based on rocks. That was the reason for this variance. The owners can't get what they want for rocks that have been there since Moses was in diapers. This is an egregious ask, and we're impacting people's lives. I don't even know these people, but I was so moved by what I saw, and after hearing what I just saw, I can't imagine this being approved. And I would urge you not to do this. This is going to impact the lives of the gentleman that just talked, and I guess the woman that just talked. So I appreciate the time and the ability to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody? Oh, yes, Ms. Merle.
My name's still Judith Merrill, and I still live at 1252 Sierra Peaks. I'm sorry, I stumbled over my address. I do know it. I have a statement that I'd like to read, please. I strongly object to this request for encroachment onto the legal setback of the above property. Setbacks are for the good of the community and for the protection of adjoining property owners. They should not be compromised merely for the convenience of those making the request. I understand that occasionally setback rules should be waived because of an unusual situation which benefits not only the requesting owner, but most especially the existing owners, perhaps to save an old tree, to protect an unusual rock formation, or to install logical drainage, but they should not be permitted over the objection of the adjoining property owners. This is a particularly egregious case. The request is for encroachment of nearly 10 feet into the required 25-foot setback. That's over 1/3 of the depth of that setback. And if I understand the proposed house will run along the complete side of that property. So it will run along the complete side of the existing house. Not only is this equal to the width of some garages, but the portion of the encroachment will actually be the garage. Someone suggested that perhaps that encroachment was, that little casita-looking thing was garage, but it clearly isn't, and the architect has said that it isn't. The garage is going to be up there at the top of the hill. And so the people who live there now, Mr. and Mrs. Shepler, I think it is, are going to be looking out at the back of a 2-story garage, 10 feet closer to their home than is legally allowed. This is something they would never have envisioned in their worst nightmares. And to make matters even worse, the encroachment of those 10 feet at the east end, unlike what Mr. Meade said, will really impact the width of their view shed, because their living room is located in such a way to look out there, and if it's a 10-foot reduction in their view shed, it will make a big difference there.
Ma'am, which property are you reading for?
That one?
This one right here?
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that we knew.
If you visit the home, it was obviously sited in order to take advantage of the view shed that goes down there to the east. This is a case of where Mr. and Mrs. Morse, the people requesting this variance, obviously designed a home which will not fit within the legal building area of their property. They expect the Sheplers to sacrifice to accommodate their own unwillingness to build in accordance with the legal setbacks. Allowing this encroachment would clearly lower the quality of life of the Sheplers, as well as the value of their home. This request should be denied not only because of the damage it will do to the existing property owners, but because of the precedent it will set for future building throughout the community. I want to make a bit of a more observation. This is a spectacular piece of property, just spectacular. And it has a spectacular view. But it needs a design that takes advantage of what topography is left. The building pad that's up there was cleared a number of years ago. I guess the people decided it was too expensive to build, and they've just let that property sit for a while. But a marvelous home could be built, incorporating some of those boulders or stepping down the hill a little bit. This house needs to be built on a flat piece of property that's not at the top of a hill and that's not encroaching 10 feet into the setback that all these neighbors followed when they were building. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come to the mic, sir.
Thank you.
Come to the mic, sir.
David Newer again at the property to the rear of this. I failed to mention this property is about 10 foot higher in elevation than my lot, and I'm quite a bit higher than the street. So that's the reason my view will really be impacted. The other thing, someone told me that the driveway that was shown there was really for convenience of the pad construction, but is in non-compliance as a driveway because, as one of the people mentioned, that's a blind corner that's a very busy West Ridge and Downer Trail, and I can't imagine that the driveway would really be allowed there. It's also extremely steep. So I was told the driveway, in fact, it's the concrete for a driveway is further down on the planning where the utilities are, about midway down on the lot. If you could show that arrow. About there, or a little bit further up, but yeah, about there, which would be acceptable to the traffic from Downer Trail, because right now there's just a single stop sign there at West Ridge coming up in Downer Trail. If for some reason you chose to do this and you allowed that drive, I believe you would have to definitely do something there at that intersection.
Thank you. Anybody
Mr.
else?
Chairman,
Yes.
this is Larry Meads, and bear with me because I can't see the audience members, so I don't know if somebody's at the lectern or not. Is this an
Sir,
appropriate
you've
time
got
to
the
speak?
floor.
Okay. I presume from what we're saying about this driveway, I see there's one on the other side of West Ridge. So I presume, and tell me if I'm not correct, Mr. Witt, if you can, that driveway entrance would pretty much match what is across the street. Is that correct?
So for clarification, the site plan does that the driveway access has not been approved by our Public Works Department. So that's something that will be reviewed when the building permit comes in and they have to get an access permit. Right now, the request was only reviewed for the setback request. So the driveway is not something that was reviewed, and that will be reviewed at permitting time. So right now, we're just looking at the setback request.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to, this is Larry Meads, and I just want to say that we're not, if a setback were approved, and I'm not making that recommendation at this time, but if it were approved, it's not setting a precedent. I think that precedent's way in the past. We often consider these due to the topography of the land, and this is a beautiful area, no doubt about it, and it's a beautiful lot. Whether that justifies the encroachment on the setback, I just don't know at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Yes, sir. Come to the mic.
Jerry Wilder again. Just I apologize. I don't know the gentleman's name. That driveway that you noted is not a driveway. It's the driveway to that home is located on Downer Trail, well south of that.
Sorry,
So it's not a driveway. It's some kind of access. They like if they have contractors or something come in there, and to the last gentleman's, that is an extraordinarily dangerous decision if you put if that driveway is it's blind going up, and most definitely turning left coming south. Again, I want to reiterate. We heard the builders or the owners representatives say that the reason for the ask on the variance is their personal preference for what they want for economic reasons to move the boulders. When they bought the lot, the due diligence that they did should have been done then and not at the expense of the existing homeowners. And the second thing is, reiterate, they came up here and said, well, we don't want to build a big tower, the aesthetics, and keep everything great. And then they tell you that they're building a 2-story building on one of the largest, well, that is the peak of that particular area. That doesn't seem to add up to me. But most importantly, I wanted to point out that that isn't a driveway. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Larry.
This is Larry Meads, and I'm trying to understand, was this lot laid out or prepped as it is, as we see it? Was that done recently or sometime in the past prior to these owners? Or does
I wouldn't
anyone
know that right up front. Yes.
This is David Newer. That lot was available for my purchase when I bought mine, which was 4 or 5 years ago. So it was done some time ago, and I would have loved to have this lot, but I didn't think I could afford to do it. That's a very problematic lot.
Thank you.
Yes, Chairman Tom Davis, just to pair off of what Larry asked, do we have the age on the subdivision? Do we know when the subdivision was approved, just off the top of?
20 years ago.
No, not off our top of our heads, no.
Okay.
It is primarily developed, as you can see. So as you can see from the imagery of the area, that there is still some vacant lots out there. And usually what we are seeing is the lots that are left are a little bit more challenging to develop right now. Anything that was easy to develop or flat are usually gone right now, unless they're new builds. They need subdivisions.
I just want to make a comment regarding this, and this may not have a bearing, but my background is in land planning, and I've worked on a lot of residential community developments. And the subdivisions, the person that's planning the subdivision to begin with plans based on buildable sites, and they take into consideration the setbacks. And if they don't the setback don't work with the initial plans, then they change the lots. They change the design accordingly. So I know this is a very difficult lot to build on. I could see by driving by it, and you could tell by the nature of the landscape. But they're all tough lots in that subdivision. So my point is that the solution to the setback and the siting of the home should have been accommodated a long time ago, and I just don't see the hardship. I don't see, and I would never support the precedent to do a 40% plus or minus encroachment into an established setback for good reason.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to hold moving this forward on a vote until Vice Chairman gets back. My concern here again, in an established residential neighborhood, especially one with topographical issues and traffic issues, that you would be setting a precedence to give a variance for someone when all the other lots in the area accommodated the conditions that were there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my concern. It's almost like giving a variance is a betterment for somebody else to have to deal with than the previous people who'd already entered the neighborhood. So we'll wait till Tony gets back, unless there's somebody else that has some comments.
We have both Larry and Mark with their hands raised.
Okay, sorry, my back's to you guys. Go ahead.
Larry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to wait until Mr. Teeters gets back.
Mark?
Oh, I see. He's coming back?
Yes.
All right. Thank
Mark?
And Mr. Chair, Mark Hookness, I will not be supporting a motion to grant a variance. I believe that the property owner has multiple ways that they can get useful enjoyment from their property. As many of the neighbors have spoken up, they need to do so within the confines of the existing regulations. So again, if a motion is made, I will not be supporting moving forward.
All right. Well, thank you for your comments. Now that Mr. Teeters is back, does one of the commissioners wish to make a motion either to approve or deny? Have we had any more input from the public? I don't want anybody to feel denied. Okay. Thank you.
Larry, go ahead.
Before I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Excuse me, Tom Davis. But is it V21 or V20?
V21. Sorry about that. V21. Thank
okay.
you
All right.
for that clarification.
Then I'll move to deny V20-003 to reduce the front yard setback by 20 feet, resulting in the 10-foot front yard setback.
I have a motion to deny.
Excuse me, that wasn't the correct number.
Yeah.
It's V21-005.
Okay, so it's V21.
Yes.
Okay, I misunderstood you.
It's okay. Sorry about that.
Right. To reduce the required 25-foot rear setback by 9 feet 4 inches, resulting in 15 feet 8 rear yard setback for a new single-family residence.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Tony Teeters, second.
I have a motion and a second. Please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Are we done today?
No, we got one more.
We have one more. Oh, come on, guys. Don't do this.
Do you want to wait a minute or?
No, we'll let the room clear here for a minute.
Okay.
All right, let's proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. The next request is a variance to Article 2, Section 2.7.3.E.4 for accessory structure height of the Land Development Code to allow an increase in allowed height of an accessory structure of 20 feet by 7 feet 6 inches to allow for a height of 27 feet 6 inches for a shade structure on a 5.5 acre parcel. So this is an existing church on Senator Highway. They're proposing to put a shade structure here to provide an outdoor space that can be used year round for the kids that do programs here and for other programs that they do. And this is the proposed location. So we have Senator Highway here, the access, and then here's where they're proposing to put the 1,600 square foot shade structure. This is the imagery of the property. It'd be right here, this location. There's really no development around the area that would impact. It is in the center courtyard here and is only visible from Senator Highway. This is the proposed shade structure. It needs to be overlapped. That's why they need the height to provide actually adequate shade. If they just do the different panels and it's just one layer, they've found with another shade structure, it doesn't shade it very adequately and provides a very small area that can be used. So they're trying to provide a better outdoor space without doing permanent structures out there. These are pretty permanent the way they're constructed, but instead of enclosing that whole area, to provide an adequate area for airflow and shade so people can do activities outside. And this is the proposed height of the structure. This is 27 feet here. So this is about the 20 feet, probably about right here or so. So if it didn't have that second layer on top that actually provides the more coverage of the area, then it would meet the 20 feet. But like I said, they have another shade structure out there that in a different area, then they're just finding it doesn't provide adequate shade to be able to be used more times during the day. So because with the activities that we've seen over this last year, people are trying to provide more outdoor areas for people to do activities for the church. So like I said, this is the imagery of the area. They do have additional parking down in this area since this was taken, but the rest of it is pretty vacant. And this will only really be seen by the highway. And here's the imagery. So this is the area in question where the shade structure would go. And here's another view from Senator Highway. It'd be in this courtyard right here. And the church is taller than what the proposed shade structure, so it would be pretty well confined to that courtyard area.
Tammy, may I ask, just with that picture?
Sure.
Would the canopy be higher than any of the roofs that exist there?
No. Like I said, it would be pretty well contained within that courtyard area. But what they found, like I said, with another shade structure to have in another area, it's just not providing enough shade and there's gaps in it and such. With the layering of the fabric, it provides more adequate coverage for that area so that it can be used more time of the day and more times of the year. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
This is Larry Meads. I want to ask Mr. Wood a question about that site plan that was up that showed a 10 by 10 square on that aerial view.
It was showing 10 feet from the structures. So it's 10 feet from this structure and 10 feet from this structure. It's 40 by 40.
Okay, so you're showing the
it's showing that it's meeting the setback requirements for fire.
Okay. And this will be a fireproof material, I presume?
Correct.
And who would oversee the color choices on that canopy? I know we don't.
We do not regulate the colors.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I just want to say I'm in favor of this motion.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Are there any other comments? Not hearing any. Any from the public?
My name is Jason Price. I'm at 540 Turtleback Road. I'm the pastor of this church, and so we have a very community-minded, want to be great neighbors to our neighbors. So as you can tell from the street view, the church is significantly down off of Senator Highway, and the parking, you can't even see it just continues to go down. We have a cemetery behind us. I've never heard those people complain. We have Acker Park over to our north, and then as the staff noted, we have purchased actually the property to the south. So that is now a parking lot for us. So there, literally, we have no neighbors that would be impacted by this whatsoever. So
you could actually put raspberry pink as the color?
I think we would not want to do that. I think the ones that we have currently, which are actually if you look at that, if you go up just a little bit, that front side right there is the main entrance to our auditorium currently. And we have, as she noted, some shade sails there. We have a brown building and rust color on that facility. And so it's a rust color canopy with some blue accents.
I was just kind of kidding about
yes,
the hot
but
pink.
we're not interested in raspberry.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Then I'll entertain a motion. Larry?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
this is Mark Oakness, and I support this variance, and I will make a motion to approve V 21-006 as noted by staff.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? So that passes unanimously also. So, Mr. Witt, did we get through it?
That was all.
That
Great
was
job.
it?
That was all. Oh, I'm sorry. I know.
we were all done meeting now?
And at this time, I don't think we have any applications for next month, but we will let you know. Kaylee's thinking too. I don't remember.
Not off the top of my head, but I'll always check in with you guys a week prior. You'll always get a check-in.
Thank you to my fellow commissioners for being here bright and early and sticking with it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is Larry Meads.
Hi, Larry.
Hi, I just wanted to ask some technical questions, I guess, about this, me viewing this via Zoom, which I probably will do again. And I guess what is shown on the screen, I don't have any control over, presumably. Is that correct? Does
Correct.
anybody know that?
Correct.
Okay. I find it helpful to see the scene of the room, and sometimes that's there and sometimes it's not. And,
Yes. Here on so the media center has on here, but they were not showing it until almost through the meeting. So we will make sure that either our screen is showing or that the Prescott Media Center is showing, that you see probably on your screen right now.
Well, that's so helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you. With no further ado, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Nice job.